This is the Thursday, September 3rd, 2020 meeting of the Athens City Planning Commission. All members are in attendance, so a quorum has been established. There is no one speaking today from any other items, so there is no one to give the oath to. Moving on to disposition of the minutes for August 20, 2020. If you've had a chance to review, are there any concerns, additions, questions? If not, I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. There are no cases today, so we'll move ahead with our communications of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan, directed by or presented by Mr. Paul Logue. Good afternoon, Mr. Logue. Do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Thank you. Let me bring up my presentation if I can. Got a whole bunch of things open on my desktop here.
And for our audience, we'll go ahead with like about 20 minutes of presentation from Mr. Logue today, and I'm sure we're going to have a few more as we go along in the subsequent Planning Commission meetings. Whenever you're ready, Paul.
Okay. Yeah. It's on my desktop, and the share screen is no. Oh, there it is. Great. And can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. So we talked, of course, apologies for the Planning Commission meeting 2 weeks ago when the power went out in my neighborhood, and halfway through my presentation, the only time that has happened in the Zoom era. So I apologize for that. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to spend this Planning Commission meeting discussing this in more detail. I covered some of the initial things in the beginning a couple weeks ago, but just a little bit of background. We're due to update our comprehensive plan. The last one was adopted, was wrapped up about 15 years ago. Typically, you want to update and review comprehensive plans on a 20-year basis, and while you're going through that 20-year term, you want to kind of ideally take a look at what's already been done and see if you need to evaluate. As well, of course, you continue other planning endeavors as a community. So you try to, when new planning endeavors are going forward in the next 20 years, hopefully we'll be reflecting on the comprehensive plan to help build in those plans. Comprehensive plan, just like I said, it's a comprehensive document. It's an attempt to try to pull a whole host of issues together into a uniform document to try to, as best we can, meet a lot of different needs all at the same time. Our plan is, it does reflect on existing plans around our community. Many of them are city-related plans, but also the university's master plan, the Athens County Economic Development Council's planning process, the county plan, and things like that. So we're cognizant of those as we're going through this process. We just some basics here. We've been working on this plan for about 2 years now. Started with visioning back in March of 2018. We started doing some public meetings and workshops through 2018 and into mid 2019, in which we started drafting the document. Had that document wrapped up in 2020, and then we've been taking it a little bit slow since we went into pandemic mode. Didn't want to start pushing things forward. Of course, a lot of community members, as well as I'll speak for myself, our minds were really scattered for a while there, and it didn't feel appropriate to me to be talking about asking Planning Commission or City Council to look at a comprehensive plan and think about that when there's a lot of uncertainties going on, as well as just people had a lot of their minds were focused on different things there. Right now we're looking at, we're wrapping up public feedback on the plan. There was a survey that was distributed several weeks ago. It is still available for people to comment. I did put a date on there saying that public comment would expire on the end of, I think August 21st. However, people have been asking, and I've still been receiving email feedback from people. And as long as we're kind of in a review mode, I'm going to continue to accept comment and feedback on the plan. Have gotten some positive feedback. Of course, there's people who have questions about issues within there, and there are some concerns about things, very typical. Some people have just given me correction on some typos, which is also really appreciated. And I think this is kind of where we were last week or 2 weeks ago when my power went out. But I think these are, if nothing else, these are the really important from a high level bird's eye view for a planning commission. These are the key things that were identified through this plan that are really, we need to be considering for our community. We need to diversify the Athens economy. We are historically and today heavily reliant on Ohio University. And of course, that is, there's a lot in question there right now with what that's going to look like over the next 5 to 10 years, I would think. We don't have a lot of room to grow within the existing footprint of our city. We are pretty well developed. We're also challenged by hillsides and floodplains. Our community is desiring more renewable energy, moving towards sustainable development patterns to try to reduce our carbon footprint. We've done a lot of public art and preservation efforts over the last several years. That has been very well received. And the community would like to see more public art, more historic preservation, more things along those lines to really showcase Athens. We have some corridors that are changing. There's a lot going on with Union Street right now, with Ohio University building a new footprint there, Ohio Health also building new buildings there. We're seeing the Heritage College of Medicine kind of being an anchor in that area, as well as the College of Engineering, and then medical as we move further west. The community is really, we heard a lot about the need to be an inclusive community, making sure that Athens is a place where people can feel that they can call it home, making sure that it's a place where people can see themselves reflected in it and say that they want to live there. There's a lot going on with disabilities planning, and the plan tries to focus on that, as well as looking at traditional disabilities planning. Maybe might be an appropriate way to look at it, and also looking at an emerging planning topic, which is how to have a better community and a built environment for people who are on the autism spectrum and they have really specific needs than somebody who is neurotypical. The other big takeaway is that our housing needs are not being met in Athens. We don't have affordable housing at decent price points for people who are looking unless you can buy it and then invest a lot of money into a rehab project. We don't offer a lot of condominiums, townhouse style, things like that for people. We do have housing needs are generally being met for off-campus student housing. There's actually I think availability of housing for undergraduate students right now based on Ohio University situation. And and of course, impact of the Ohio University will reflect on the greater community as we're moving forward. I don't know if do you want me to, let's see, maybe the best, so that's kind of the broad community takeaways. RJ, if you'd like, I can start moving into each section of the plan, or if there's any comments on the broad takeaways to start with, we can go with that.
Well, first of all, are there any comments or questions? Otherwise, Paul, why don't you go ahead and break it down?
Sure. So when we started the plan, there was there are several key themes or topics that emerged through it when we did our visioning for the planning process back in 2018. We tried to take what we heard through the visioning process and break that down into several different topics. So the plan includes topical issues, and then also includes looking at neighborhoods and corridors. So there's like land use issues. Within one of the first topics we looked at was history, culture, and what we called artistic and creative spirit. These are kind of some of the several key recommendations from that section. I could go into considerable detail on them, but for purposes of the Planning Commission, we can kind of keep it a little bit higher level. Some key things I think that we noted were there is a desire for the preservation of brick streets. At the same time, we want to, I think we'll talk about this down the road, but actually remove brick sidewalks because they are a hazard for people as they're trying to walk or if they have a disability. We want to see a better coordinated arts calendar and making sure that information is integrated into our city apps. There's desire for a formalized funding process for public art efforts to make sure that there is on an annual basis. Obviously, our budget's very complicated right now, but that we do have a line item that would support public art. One of the bigger things we looked at was looking at Mount Zion, there's a lot going on with Mount Zion right now, and of course the Athens Armory, and then Southeast Ohio History Center to try to develop some sort of what was termed a heritage square for that northern block or two of Court Street to try to create something there, trying to leverage all three of those facilities into a bigger package, maybe to draw for small convention and conference type business. All of those spaces, once they're fully formed, would have a lot of opportunity there. There's a boutique hotel very close to that area right now, and a second boutique hotel I believe the Planning Commission approved a couple years ago. So I'll move on to the next section, which was our housing and neighborhoods, and this is looking at just kind of a more general view. As I said, we do have a lot of housing issues in Athens, and what we heard from the community was that they're not being met for most sectors, and our housing needs change based on our demographics, of course, our income levels, our familial status, our age, and our disability status. So there's a lot of issues that we try to unpack in there. Within that, we're looking at strategies or recommending strategies to incentivize universal design for new housing stock. Our housing code is tied directly to the Ohio Basic Building Code, and so we cannot mandate requirements above and beyond what's in Ohio Basic Building Code. However, we could look at strategies to incentivize something like universal design or senior housing, or ideally both. That could be used through tax incentive programs such as TIFs, and we've already looked at some of those ideas. As well as zoning flexibility, subdivision regulations flexibility, things like that to try to encourage the types of housing that we need in our community. Also recommending that we conditionally permit accessory dwelling units within R1 zones. There's a lot of reasons for that, one of which is looking at the aging process, older people who are who might want privacy but also want to be close to family. People who have a disability, especially as they get older, they too want some autonomy as they become adults, but they also need support services from family or potential caregiver. And then there's also an opportunity for homeowners in Athens to potentially leverage some of that to help with affordability, potentially collect rent. There's also what we heard from people, and we don't have a great solution to it, but everybody wants to live near uptown and campus. That is where there's a lot more desire to be close to where things are available, close to bike paths, close to walking, close to public transit, close to public facilities, close to the events that are on Ohio University's campus. As a general rule, there's very little housing for people who want to live close to that area unless they're undergraduate students at the university. And so looking at ways to integrate some new housing into the uptown, don't have great solutions on what that would look like at this point, just stating that we should be thinking about how incentives and zoning tools could be used to get some of that to happen. There's also just some basics about the needs for undergraduate, especially with rentals, to make better access for potential tenants to understand the rental units that they're looking at, what kind of code violations might have experienced in the past, so that they can help make more informed decisions about before they sign a lease. As we know, and things might be a little bit different now, but typically a lease is signed sometimes 12 months or 24 months in advance of occupancy. And so giving them a little bit, helping them to make better choices up front or informed choices, I think would be is a reasonable thing. And there's a lot of data that the code office already maintains. That last bullet point, I think that's important to note. I've had a couple people ask why that's in there. It says limit new apartment construction to 3-bedroom units or less. That came from some best practices I observed from some other college towns around the U.S. State College was a really good example of that, and I think it was Clemson, South Carolina. Yeah. The point being there that we have a lot of our newer units in Athens that came up over the last 10 years. Many of them have a living room, a central kitchen, and 5 bedrooms each with a full bath in it, or 4 bedrooms each with a full bath in it. That makes a lot of sense from scaling from a developer standpoint, of course. They can maximize some rents. However, when there's a downturn say enrollments are dropping, or people don't want to live with 4 or 5 other tenants, those units sometimes might be completely empty, and there's no option for a 3-person family to rent that. There's no desire to. They can't afford that type of rent. There's just a lot of wasted space, and so some communities were moving towards new construction being at a 3-bedroom unit or less as the rule. That way, if there is a downturn in the economy, or if there's a change in the economy where you have growth and you have people moving into your community, that you're creating rental units that are designed for people of any age, any demographic, any economic status, not just for college students. So I think that's an important one. I don't think we would see a lot of change into the future, but I think, or at least, we don't build a lot of new units and we probably won't be building too many in the next couple of years. That being said, being smart about the way that units are built so that there's more flexibility with who the potential occupant can be, seems like a reasonable thing for the city. Moving forward to the next topic, though, is economic development. Key recommendations in there, of course, making sure that we are aware of and trying to utilize economic development incentives that already exist under state law. We are a competitive community, or we need to be a competitive community. We need to find ways to create and draw people to Athens to have set up new businesses. There's a lot of advantages. There are a lot of incentives out there. Historically, we haven't tapped into a lot of them, in my opinion. We're trying to look at some of those right now. Our Economic Development Council has been incredibly helpful to guide us through that, and just being positioned so that we can attract new development and new jobs in our community is really important. Another key recommendation is having free Wi-Fi throughout the community. That's a existing problem today because so many people in our community are taking classes online. The public school system is online. There's Wi-Fi problems all over. A lot of people don't have good access to it. And so trying to find a way to deploy municipal Wi-Fi, that's a great opportunity to get people out and about, but also being able to communicate on a daily basis. And then as we go through it, of course, we have corridor-specific recommendations. Next topic, sustainability and energy. A lot of this was, there was a lot of desire for sustainability, and as the Planning Commission's aware, we do have a Sustainability Commission that helps with a lot of this too. I think one of the key ones to really take away was we are going to be deploying there's the carbon fee that SOPEC, that pool of money is starting to fill, if I'm not mistaken, and we're looking at some options with how to deploy more solar in Athens. I think that's a key part of it. There's also desire for more outdoor recreation within our community. And I know Terry Moore from Arts, Parks, and Recreation, that's a goal she has as well. We are seeing Athens turn into Athens County as an outdoor recreation hub with the Bailey's Trail System and Wayne National Forest and a lot of other opportunities there. And we've got a terrific bike path already. So one of the key things I think with outdoor recreation to point out, it's not, the draft didn't actually mention it, but the final draft should include this, is a focus on how to better utilize the Hocking River as an outdoor recreation resource. Within Athens, it is historically not been utilized as a high quality resource for recreation. So trying to find ways to better utilize the river, I think, is key. There's a lot of partners that would have to be involved with that. Of course, the Army Corps of Engineers, the Hocking River Conservancy, the city, the county, et cetera. So things like that would be key moving forward. We also have the continued implementation of the Athens Sustainability Action Plan and recommendations from the Sustainability Commission. They're continuing to work on a lot of issues. The Planning Commission was just working with them on solar zoning last week, and they are a terrific resource for the city on that topic.
Paul, I'm sorry. We've hit our 20 minutes. Do you want to go ahead and pick up this spot at our next meeting? Or first of all, are there any questions that anybody had? Are you good with that, Paul?
However you'd prefer to do it, RJ, is fine with me.
Okay. Yep. Why don't we go ahead and start there with our next meeting so that people can kind of digest this thing as we go along, take their time a little bit. Let's go ahead and move on to our reports and see. Paul, why don't we give your throat a little rest here? And David, why don't you go ahead and start yours?
Good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to note that the next Planning Commission, which is, I believe, the 17th of this month, I'm going to have wanted to bring back the Harold Avenue plat. And the reason we're doing that is because we're also, which is my fault, I didn't realize this, we're also dedicating some right-of-way from the appellant to the city, and Planning Commission is going to need to make a recommendation to City Council to accept or not the right-of-way for that piece of property, and that's actually on Harold Avenue. So I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that. That's coming back to Planning Commission, as well as talk with the law director, and the final plat for the Harold Avenue. We need to have approval on that, and that actually needed a public hearing. So we would do a public hearing next meeting, and then make a decision on the final plat for Harold Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Riggs. Any questions for David? Okay. Paul, are you ready?
Sure. Thank you. This is 2.5 hours into Zoom calls for the morning, so straight. So I appreciate the break there, RJ. Just a couple items at the last meeting, or several meetings I've been mentioning, age-friendly Athens County planning. That is continuing. That is ongoing as we speak. We've had a lot of meetings on that. We just had a board meeting or an executive meeting at the 11 o'clock hour. We are working on a survey. We expect to go live in November with incorporating all the domains of that. That, and I'm co-chairing the housing committee along with Shauna Bolin from my university to look at how to have age-friendly housing in Athens County. So we've got several people involved with that as well. Council President Chris Nisley is assisting on that committee as well. The survey should be coming out in November, I believe, is our goal. We will be doing a random mail survey. We're not sure the exact particulars of that, but likely using the voter rolls provided by the Athens County Board of Elections. And then as we move into 2021, we'll be doing a lot of topical discussions on aging issues, as well as community discussions to better understand the differences in aging needs from different villages and cities and unincorporated areas of Athens County. It's a really great project. I know I've tried to lobby last time for if anybody's interested in getting involved with it, by all means, please let me know. We've got a really good coalition and I can plug you in. Other than that, just to point out as often as we can, please, if you haven't done so already, please complete your census. It's easy to do. It takes about 10 or 11 minutes. You can go to mycensus2020.gov. You don't need to have the ID number that they sent you in the mail several months ago. The Census Bureau can figure out based on the information that you provide. We are working diligently to try to get information and get outreach to undergraduate students who live off campus in Athens and recent graduates of the university who are no longer living in Athens. So we do have a challenge. The mayor and I did have a phone call, and actually Chief Powell was on that call too. Talked to a few landlords earlier this morning, and it did seem like we were getting some positive information that the enumerators are talking directly with landlords to try to get some of the counts. And so that was important. And I'm trying to follow up with our census contact tomorrow to better understand how we can help facilitate that. But by all means, please take the census. It's our civic duty and constitutional requirement, if I'm not mistaken. So thank you. That's all, RJ.
Okay. Thanks, Paul. Paul's going to go over and collapse now. So
just a glass of water would be good.
Yeah. Any questions for Paul before we dismiss him? Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome. Thank you.
See, now is the opportunity for citizens to speak about issues not on today's agenda. Patty or anyone, do we have anybody on line one?
Mr. DeLocke is with us, but I don't see him wanting to make a comment. So
okay, thank you. Announcements and other business. Mayor, anything? David or Paul?
I can echo what Paul was saying about civic responsibility to fill out the census. Yes, you're right, Paul. It is. Couple things I just want to bring to light. The city of Athens received a little more than $460,000 through the CARES Act relief funding state allocation. We have been diligently using that funding for a sundry of different things. Most notably, council authorized a grant that was released last week, I believe it was, to HAPCAP, Hocking Athens Perry Community Action, and that is for rent/mortgage relief under COVID-19 for people who are impacted. Council will be reviewing legislation Tuesday evening, since Monday is a holiday. Tuesday night, council will be looking at another grant package that, if passed, would also go to HAPCAP. That would be for city utility relief, again, for people impacted by COVID-19. The other thing to inform those who are watching is that the city received a second allocation yesterday for $230,000, again, through the CARES Act. The state is still working through an additional $650 million and working through the process with Senate Bill 357 to where that money would be allocated down, not using the local government fund formula, but instead using a per capita way to base that allocation. So it's conceivable that the city of Athens would receive a third tranche of coronavirus CARES Act money to come down to our municipality to kind of push to inform those who are watching some of the things that money can be used for, that we're authorized to use the money for, is for broadband expansion, for broadband, for Wi-Fi, because of us all having to live on the platform that those who are watching right now are watching us on, is having to use Zoom, having to use Microsoft Teams, whatever platform you're using, everybody's having to switch to the virtual world. And the way in which that can continue to be robust enough for continual programming is by having a strong fiber backbone system. And so we are certainly exploring that as a way, as Paul was just alluding to, under the comprehensive plan, the 2040 plan, but knowing that there is need right now for more people to have connectivity living under the coronavirus pandemic, which, by the way, and not to be Donnie Downer, but it's not likely to be going away anytime soon. We're going to have to be working in this world for quite some time, and then into the new reality, whatever that ends up becoming. So again, just wanting to make people aware that you'll hear more about that via council and from my office when it comes to the funding that the city is receiving. That said, the other thing I just want to remind people is that the city of Athens does have a face covering ordinance, to where it is a civil fine if you are out in public or in a business that is open, or any establishment that is open to the public. That ordinance is still active. Someone can incur $100 civil penalty or civil fine, administrative fine, if found in violation. It is complaint-based. The police department will respond when complaints are lodged of people not abiding by the city ordinance. That ordinance, by the way, also is parallel to the governor's order, which that too is still active, along with gatherings of 10 or greater, which is another thing that I want to remind people that under the governor's order, that you are not to gather with groups 10 or more unless there's appropriate social distancing. But even then, it's just not prudent to be gathering in groups of 10 or more. We have received a number of calls over the past several weeks about gatherings as such throughout primarily the uptown area. The Athens Police Department will respond. Anyone who is concerned can certainly call 740-592-3313, which is the non-emergency police department number, to file a complaint of people not adhering to the state orders as well as the city of Athens ordinance when it comes to face coverings. So please just do the right thing. Wear a face mask when out in the public, wash your hands frequently, maintain proper social distancing, don't gather in groups of 10 or greater. We need to continue to work together as a community to where we can get through this. It's going to take some time. So it's going to take a lot of diligence on all of our parts to do the right thing.
Thank you, Mayor. Any questions for the mayor? Any other announcements? Okay. Our next meeting will be September 17, 2020, with the business of the Athens City Planning Commission concluded.